So we can now get our followings back from the server, but we also want to be able to get the followers as well. And I mentioned that we use the use effect, or we are using the use effects to go and get these followings when we mount this component. And I did say that use effects wasn't going to cut it. Well, it could do, and we certainly could work with it in this case. But what we also have access to is the power of MobX, and MobX has the ability to observe observables, of course, and it has the ability to react to observables when they change. So what we can do is move this functionality into our profile store and make it a reaction based on when we click on a different tab. We can observe the change of the tab and then load the new followings based on the tab that's been clicked and send up the predicate for whatever this tab is to our API. And that's what we'll do in this particular case. So let's head back to VS Code. And what we want to do inside our profile store is we want to create a new observable. So I'm just going to go back up to the top, and as well as our followings, what we'll also add an observable for is the active tab inside our profile. And our active tab is going to be a number, and we'll set this initially to 0. And we also want to create a new action to go and set this active tab as well. So what I'll do is I'll create a new action, and we'll call it set active tab. And this is going to take the active index of the tab that's been clicked, which is going to be a number, and we'll set this.active tab equal to the active index. And what we want to do is when we click on a tab inside our profile content page, we want to set this active tab. So let's head over to our profile content. And what we have in here is nothing really. We've just got our panes and we've got our tab. And if we go up a level higher to our profile page, let's take a look at that. And our profile page is already using the profile store. So what we can do is we can bring in the set active tab function from our store. So we'll bring in set active tab, and then we can simply pass that down to our profile content. And whenever we change the tab, we can update the active tab that's the observable in our profile store. So I'll pass the set active tab equal to set active tab to our profile content, and then in our profile content we'll just create a new interface called iProps, and we'll say set active tab is going to receive the active index, which is a number, and returns void. And then we'll make our profile content a react.fc and pass in the iProps. And then we'll just destructure the active or set active tab method inside here. And then what we can do inside the tab itself, it's got an on-tab change method that we can call. And inside here, this takes or provides two parameters. It provides the event and also the data. And we can get our active index outside of the data property here. So what we'll do is we'll specify e and data, and we'll say set active tab, and we'll specify the active index as data dot active index. And we're getting a warning here because it's telling us that the argument of type string or number or undefined, which is a union type, is not assignable to parameter of type number. And just to avoid this TypeScript, I'm just going to ignore the fact we're using TypeScript for this particular example, and I'm just going to set our active index to any, just to move forward so we can take a look at the functionality, as opposed to being completely accurate in terms of TypeScript on this particular occasion. So whenever we click on one of the tabs now, then we're going to be setting the active index, and the tabs start from 0. So the About is going to have an active index of 0, Photos is going to be 1, Activities will be 2, and Followers will be 3, and Following will be 4. So we can make use of the numbers of the active index to decide what we want to do in terms of loading our followers or followings. So let's go back to our profile store. And what we can do is react to this active tab changing. And let's head up to our constructor where we add our reaction. So let's add a reaction inside here. And what we'll do inside here is we'll add an expression and say we want to observe this active tab. And then we'll take in our active tab as the parameter we pass to this, or what we get from this. And then we can say if the active tab is equal to 3, or the active tab is equal to 4, then we want to do something. And what we'll do is we'll say const predicate is equal to the active tab, and if it's equal to 3, then we'll add a ternary operator. And we'll specify the predicate as followers, and if it's not equal to 3, then we'll set it to following. And then we'll say list.loadFollowings, and we'll pass in our predicate. And we'll also just have an else statement here, and we'll just reset the followings equal to just an empty array. So if they click on any of the other tabs in our profile, then we just reset the followings back to the empty array. Now what we should be able to do then is go back to our profile followings, and we can remove the use effect, and we can also remove the load followings from inside here because we're taking care of this inside our store. We'll still keep the loading flag, and we'll also remove the use effect from our imports. Now what we should find if we go back to our profile is when we click on followers, we get an empty array for people following Bobby, which is fine. And if we click on following, then we load the people that are following Bobby. And that's not strictly true either because I haven't changed the header inside this yet. So what we also need to do is bring in our active tab inside here so that we can change the contents of the header as well. So let's just add this, and we'll bring in the active tab into our profile followings, and we'll just say if the active tab is equal to 3, then it's going to be the people following the current user or the user's profile page where loaded, and if it's not equal to 3, then the content of this will be the people the current user's profile we're looking at is following. So let's just go back and make sure that small correction has updated. So I'll click on followers, and this is people following Bobby, that's correct. And following, we see the people that Bobby is following. And let's just log out of Bob and log in as Tom at test.com. And if I just go and take a look at Tom's profile, then Tom has one follower, which is Bob. So if I take a look at the followers, then we see Bob's profile in there, and following, Tom isn't following anyone at the moment. So let's go and change that, and I'll just click on Jane's profile, and I'll change this to following, and Jane's followers goes up to 2. And if I click on followers, I should see Bob and Tom, and the following for Jane should just be nobody because she's not following anybody. So this is the functionality we wanted to achieve for our followers. And it's been quite a journey to get to this point. For what seems like quite simple functionality, it does take some effort to get this all configured and wired up into our application. Now we're finishing this section, so let's just take a look and make sure there's no nasty, horrible warnings inside our console. And we do get the verbose messages there, but there's no user messages. And this one is just related to our input elements saying they could have some autocomplete attributes. we won't worry about that for now. Our main goal is to make sure we don't have anything inside our user messages when we click around and view various things. Although we've still got our logging information for connecting to our chat, which is fine. I'm just going to leave that in place. But now we've come to the end of this particular section. Let's go back to VS Code. I'm just going to close my open windows down, and I'm just going to stage and commit all of the changes we've made in this particular section. And I'll say end of section 20 and Control and Enter, and then just push these changes up to GitHub. And we'll finish this off with a summary.